Ethiopia Bible. Who were the sons of God before Adam? Who were the sons of God before Adam? This question has puzzled scholars and believers for centuries. Today we're going to uncover an ancient story, preserved in one of the world's oldest and most complete Bibles, that sheds light on this cosmic mystery. Our journey begins in the highlands of Ethiopia, home to one of the most ancient Christian traditions on earth. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church possesses a Bible that is both older and larger than the Protestant Bible most Westerners are familiar with. While the Protestant canon contains 66 books, the Ethiopian canon includes 81. This isn't a matter of one being correct and the other wrong. It's more helpful to think of them as different libraries, each with its own unique history of collection and preservation. Because of Ethiopia's early adoption of Christianity and its relative geographic isolation, its library preserved books that were widely read and revered in the early days of Judaism and Christianity, but were later lost or set aside by councils in Rome and the West. Two of these books, considered divinely inspired scripture in Ethiopia for over 1,500 years, are the key to our mystery: the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. These aren't just obscure footnotes. The Book of Enoch was so important to early believers that it's actually quoted directly in the New Testament, in the Epistle of Jude. These books are the missing files in our cosmic cold case. Our investigation begins in a place you know well, Genesis chapter 6. It's one of the strangest, most debated, and frankly, most unsettling passages in the entire Bible. It reads, "When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown." Think about that. The text drops these absolute bombshells, these sons of God, these Nephilim, these mighty men of old, and then it just moves on to the story of Noah. It's a cryptic prologue to the flood that leaves us with a universe of questions. Who or what were these sons of God? For centuries, theologians trying to solve this puzzle have offered two main theories that keep everything on a human level. The first is the Sethite view. This theory suggests that the sons of God were the righteous descendants of Adam's good son, Seth. The daughters of men were the worldly, ungodly descendants from the line of the first murderer, Cain. The sin, in this case, was the mixing of the holy line with the profane, leading to society's corruption. The second is the royalty view. This interpretation argues that sons of God was a title for powerful human kings or tyrants, who in the ancient world were often seen as divine or semi-divine. Their sin was lust and abuse of power, taking any woman they chose for their harems. These are plausible, rational explanations. They keep the story neat and tidy, but they have a huge problem. Two, actually. First, does the marriage of two human groups, even a godly one and a wicked one, explain why their children were Nephilim? A word that in other parts of the Bible is associated with giants of terrifying size and strength. Second, and more importantly, would this intermarriage alone, something that happens all throughout the Bible, justify God's most extreme judgment? To become so grieved that he decides to wipe out almost all life with a global flood? The punishment seems to vastly outweigh the crime. The story feels like it's pointing to a transgression that is far more profound, something that fundamentally violated the created order itself. This brings us to the third view, the one held by the vast majority of ancient Jewish and Christian interpreters before the 4th century. It argues that the answer isn't in theology, but in linguistics. We have to look at the original Hebrew phrase, Bene ha-Elohim. While our modern Bibles often translate this as sons of God, the real question for any investigator is, how is this exact phrase used elsewhere in the Old Testament? Where else can we find its fingerprints? Well, It appears in the Book of Job. There, the Bene Ha-Elohim are the divine angelic beings who assemble in God's heavenly court to present themselves before Him. It appears in the Psalms, where the Bene Ha-Elohim are the members of the divine assembly, the heavenly host. In every other instance where this specific phrase, Bene Ha-Elohim, is used in the Old Testament, it refers not to humans, but to angels, divine, non-human, heavenly beings. This isn't just a biblical quirk. It's a window into the ancient world. The cultures surrounding ancient Israel, like the one at Ugarit, had a similar concept. Their texts speak of a divine council presided over by a high god, El, whose members were called the Ben Il, a direct linguistic and conceptual parallel to the Hebrew Bene Ha-Elohim. The biblical authors and their audience lived in this world. They would have understood the term in this context. This changes everything. It suggests that the Sethite and royalty views, as logical as they seem to us, might be later attempts to rationalize a story that was originally understood to be about something far more cosmic. It suggests the oldest interpretation is that Genesis 6 is describing a forbidden union between angels and human women. But the Bible gives us no other details. It's a locked door. To open it, we need the key. If Genesis 6 is the locked door, the Book of Enoch is the key. Preserved in its complete form only in the Gaze language of Ethiopia, this ancient and influential book claims to be the testimony of Enoch himself, the man from Genesis who walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. Enoch doesn't just tell us that the sons of God sinned. He gives us a front-row seat to the entire cosmic tragedy. He names the names, lists the crimes, and records the judgment. According to the Book of Enoch, a specific order of 200 angels, known as the Watchers, were sent to earth. Their mission was to watch over, guide, and protect the fledgling human race. But as they watched, they became consumed with lust for human women. Their leader, a high-ranking angel named Shemihazah, gathered the 200 on the summit of Mount Hermon. There, he voiced his desire, and fearing he would be the only one to commit this great sin, he made them all swear a binding oath together. They would descend as one, violate their sacred duty, take human wives, and father a new race of beings. The children born from these forbidden unions were the Nephilim. In Genesis, they are called mighty men of old, men of renown. But Enoch paints a much darker picture. They were giants, possessing immense size and strength, but cursed with an insatiable, ravenous appetite. They devoured all the food and resources of mankind. When that wasn't enough, Enoch says they began to devour animals, then humans themselves, and finally, in a horrifying frenzy, they turned on one another, drinking each other's blood. The world, which God had created in perfect order, descended into a nightmare of violence, cannibalism, and chaos. But their sin was not just lust, it was a full-scale rebellion. The Watchers, led by another chief angel named Azazel, began to systematically corrupt humanity by teaching them forbidden knowledge, secrets of heaven they were not ready for, secrets that would accelerate their downfall. This was not a gift to uplift humanity, it was a poison. They taught humanity how to forge swords and shields, turning metal into instruments of war. They taught them the art of cosmetics and adornment, fueling vanity and seduction. They revealed the secrets of sorcery, astrology, and divination, turning humanity away from God to seek power from other sources. They were deliberately uncreating God's creation, replacing peace with violence and innocence with corruption. The cries of the tormented earth and the blood of the righteous finally broke through the heavens. The great archangels, Michael, the protector, Gabriel, the messenger, Raphael, the healer, brought the case of the corrupted world before the throne of God. And the judgment was swift and absolute. God commanded the archangel Raphael to bind the ringleader Azazel and cast him into total darkness, burying him under sharp rocks to await the final day of judgment when he will be thrown into the fire. He commanded Gabriel to cause the giants, the Nephilim, to destroy one another in a brutal civil war. And he commanded Michael, the chief of the archangels, to bind Shemihazah and the rest of the rebellious watchers in the valleys of the earth, imprisoning them in the abyss until the end of days. Their rebellion was answered with divine justice. The world was now so deeply stained with blood and demonic influence that only one solution remained: the Great Flood, a baptism to wash the world clean and begin again. So the Book of Enoch tells us who the sons of God were, the fallen watchers. It tells us what they did and why the flood was necessary. But it still doesn't fully answer the question from our title. Who were they before Adam? For that final, stunning piece of the puzzle, we need to open the second lost book from the Ethiopian biblical canon, the Book of Jubilees. Sometimes called the Lesser Genesis, the Book of Jubilees retells the history of the world from creation to the Exodus. It presents itself as a secret revelation given by an angel to Moses on Mount Sinai. And its purpose is to reveal the divine order of time, the weeks, the months, the years, and the great 49-year cycles called Jubilees, showing how God's law is woven into the very fabric of creation. And in its detailed account of the creation week, the Book of Jubilees drops a theological bombshell that reframes everything we thought we knew. We all know the story from Genesis Day 1, "Let there be light." But Jubilees reveals that something else, something monumental, was also created on that very first day. In chapter 2, the angel dictates to Moses, "For on the first day he created the heavens which are above, and the earth and the waters, and all the spirits which serve before him, the angels of the presence, and the angels of sanctification, and the angels of the spirit of fire, and the angels of the spirit of the winds." Do you see what that means? The angels, all of them, the entire heavenly host, including the beings who would one day become the rebellious watchers, the sons of God, were created on day 1. Adam was created on day 6. They are not just pre-flood, they are pre-Adamic. They existed in the heavens, serving in the divine council long before the first human ever took a breath. They were the original sons of God, and their story, their choice to remain loyal or to rebel, is the true prequel to our own. This revelation is staggering. It means the story of humanity didn't begin on a clean slate. It began on a stage where a cosmic drama of loyalty and rebellion was already underway. The temptation in the Garden of Eden wasn't the opening act of evil. It was the second front in a war that began in the heavens among these pre-Adamic beings. The fall of the Watchers and the fall of Adam are not two separate stories. They are two battles in the same great cosmic war for creation. So, we started with a cryptic clue in Genesis. We followed a trail of breadcrumbs to an ancient library in Ethiopia and opened 2 books that have been preserving this story for millennia. The Book of Enoch gave us the names and the crimes of the sons of God, revealing them as the fallen watchers. And the Book of Jubilees gave us the timeline, placing their existence before Adam on the very first day of creation. The mystery is solved. The sons of God were a pre-human race of divine beings whose rebellion scarred the world and set the stage for the entire human story. But what does this ancient epic story mean for us today, in our modern world? For one, it reminds us that the universe is far more mysterious and spiritually complex than we often imagine. It's a powerful and timeless warning about the danger of knowledge without wisdom, of power without humility, of ability without accountability. The Watchers had access to the secrets of heaven, but they used them to corrupt and destroy, not to create and heal. It also teaches us about responsibility. The Watchers introduced forbidden paths, but humanity chose to walk down them. We are not merely puppets in a divine drama. Our choices matter. They echo in the cosmos. And finally, it reveals that our own spiritual journey, our own struggles, our own search for light and truth is part of a much larger, much older story. We are not the first actors on this stage. The battles we fight in our hearts, between pride and humility, between love and selfishness, between faith and despair, are echoes of a conflict that began before time as we know it. This story, hidden for so long from so many, is not meant to provide all the answers. It's meant to invite us into a deeper state of wonder, to look at the world, at our ancient texts, and at our own lives with new eyes. What other ancient truths are waiting to be rediscovered? How does knowing this prequel to the human story change how you view your own life and purpose? This journey into the heart of ancient scripture, uncovering the narratives that shape our spirit, is what my work is all about. And if you want to dive even deeper into these kinds of spiritual stories and uncover more of the hidden wisdom that can transform our understanding, you'll find resources for further study in the description below. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the sons of God before Adam. May it inspire you to keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep wondering about the great mysteries that surround us.